whereas the Association of Principals and Deputy Principals has warmly welcomed this, and I welcome that. The ASTI and the TUI have expressed certain reservations as regards the level of consultation. And maybe if it's not being bad-mannered, I'd like you to comment on that one as well.
Thank you very much, Senator Darcy. I now call Senator Jillian van Turnhout, and you have 8 minutes.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Minister, to the House. Firstly, on the issue of literacy and numeracy strategy, I very much welcome your plans, Minister. I remember a few years ago working on the NESF report on this very subject, and I was alarmed with figures that we had 1 in 10 children leaving school with literacy issues, which rose to 1 in 4 in disadvantaged areas. And somebody tried to say to me, it's okay because in other European countries the figures are higher. I don't really care, actually, whether the figures are higher or not. I care about the fact that we have 1 in 10 children leaving school with literacy and numeracy issues. And when you look and you read all the reports, they all talk about an all-community approach. You know, it's not just about in-school reality. It's from in the supermarket, a parent saying, get me the peas, and spelling out the letters and the child finding it. So it's all these things, community involving older generations. But the reality is, Minister, and I heard this when we were doing the report from many parent organisations, is parents are again and again told when they bring their young loved one to the school gates, you make sure they can tie the laces, make sure they have a lunch that they can eat easily, and we'll look after the teaching. And don't you be teaching them how to read, because we'll have to undo it and reteach them. And I heard this again and again when I was going around the country talking to parents' groups. So, from parents about the messages that they were getting from schools. Now, I'm not saying all teachers at all, and I'm not taking about, but it's this, we read all the reports, we say all of this about everybody working together in the community. Education isn't just the preserve of school. And I think it's very important that when we are looking at plans, that we try and involve the community, because we have outstanding teachers as well who are working with communities, but we also have this approach that this preserve, and it sort of reinforces that feeling that parents don't have a role in the education of their children. I do welcome your plans in relation to the junior certificate, and I've looked at them quite closely. I think the continuous assessment is a good principle. And maybe part of me wonders, and am I saying this because I think I would have always done better on continuous assessment than I would at exam times. And there are children and young people who will perform better under one method than another, and part of me wonders, is that part of my reasoning why I would be in favour of. But I think it is a good practice for life about continuous assessment, about being able to consistently deliver. So I do think it will have a positive effect on the students' learning experience, the development of their most needed skills from an early age, and most importantly, the capacity to analyse information, to communicate, to work in a team, to think creatively. And the proposed focus on the long-term development and literacy and numeracy instead of a one-size-fits-all junior certificate, I think will encourage students and teachers creatively and allow for a more informed and self-aware process of acquiring knowledge. Students will be able to develop their interests and skills without the rigidity of learning specifically for the tests. I think which will hopefully relieve some pressure experienced by some students during the formal examination periods. And I think another proposed reform is the curriculum flexibility, which I think is great. It will allow schools to design and new teaching programmes, and hopefully they'll involve the students in doing that. I think they'll have a lot to say. Maybe you could have subjects on local development, new media, arts programmes. It would allow, I think, a much wider approach to education. As far as the proposed assessments are concerned, I believe teachers do know their students best, and that they are best placed to reflect on students' performance, abilities and work. And the focus on long-term overview of students' development will help the parents to see the progress being made by their child. But I do maybe share some of the concerns that have been raised, Minister, and Senator Darcy has mentioned it, by the TUI and the ASTI. They've raised some concern in relation, generally in relation to the consultation process. So I just would like you to clarify, so I actually know, because I've read conflicting statements. I've read statements from your officials saying they have been consulted. I've heard from them saying they have not been consulted. But if we're looking at the assessment process, And I just wonder about small communities and the pressures coming from parents for a positive assessment when everybody knows everybody, and that idea of clientelism, and that would we be bringing that into the school system, and how are we going to ensure that teachers will be trained? And I know the great plans you have for teacher training, but I'm talking about teachers who are already now in situ, in place. So how do we recalibrate how they're going to deliver their training? So that is something I think, Minister, I would very much welcome clarification from you. And then finally, Minister, you talk about phasing it in over 8 years, and I can understand that on paper. But part of me sees it of this slow guillotine coming down on schools who are at the end of the 8 years, and I'm just wondering how this 8 years is going to work. Are we going to see a value on whether you did? I did the intercert. People who know, they did the intercert or junior certs. I'm just wondering about the actual phasing in on it and the reality of doing that, and whether sometimes we're better to just take the plaster off and go for it. If this is the new system, maybe 8 years seems quite a long period to me. But I think we do have to look at change, and I do welcome the fact, Minister, that you've put out the document and allowed us to scrutinise it, and let's be part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator van Turnhout. I now call Senator Mary Moran, and you have 8 minutes.
Thank you, Lasky Hurley. I too would like to welcome the Minister back to the House this afternoon, and welcome the opportunity to participate in this very valued debate.